everyone to What the Force and our part 2 of our discussion about the Star Wars The Last Jedi novelization by Jason Fry, published by Del Rey. We are reviewing the expanded edition, so there was pictures. I guess was the special thing in the expanded edition hardcover. I believe you had the digital copy, and with me is Ty Black. Welcome, Ty.
Hello, nice to be here again.
And I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host of What the Force, and we are going to deep dive into the characters, the pairings in the book itself and how they were kind of played off, and discuss finally the ships. The obvious ships, I guess. And we're not talking about spaceships, we're talking about relationships.
They're more fun.
So let's dig into some of the characters. We talked about a lot in the last, as far as Luke and kind of his journey, and Kylo and Rey and all those. Is there anyone that you particularly want to talk about first?
Oh, can we talk about Hux?
Yes, we can talk about Hux.
I thought his moments were, delicious. Especially because I started reading, I think I started listening first. And This has a lot to do with the audio. The guy who does the audiobook, whoever voices it, he does the most amazing Hux
impression.
Voice. Yes. It's so spot on. And I think that's his best voice in the entire audiobook. But then when I started, I would switch back and forth between listening and reading to try to go through it faster. So when I read it and I would read Hux's parts, I would really read them. I wasn't just going through oh yeah, I saw this movie. Oh, I didn't see that movie. No, I was actually reading them. And I really enjoyed it because they had some things in there. I think in The Force Awakens, they had mentioned that Hux had killed his father.
Yeah.
To get into his position. So we know he's in the book.
Not in the movie.
Right.
Out, yeah.
So I knew that he was a lot more dangerous and more conniving than the movies were painting him to be. So to have him kind of pitted against not just Kylo, but pitted against other generals in his fleet and whatnot. And I think there was that one thing with the general that ended up getting blown up in the opening scene with him complaining about how Hux was too young for his position, and he was angry with all of that. And I really, really, really liked that background. I thought it was very enjoyable.
So for my part, I also wrote some notes about Hux because I thought that his whole take was really interesting. His perspective was kind of chilling a little bit, cold, and I know that he's always kind of meant to come off as like a dictator kind of, or I don't know, somebody who has would be okay with holocausts, why not?
Yeah. Precisely.
But Snoke specifically describes him, I forget what the line was actually in the movie, but he's speaking with Kylo and he describes him as why do I keep this rabid cur around? He's a useful tool, but he also describes him in his own head in this scene that it's from Snoke's perspective just before Snoke dies, as the mad son of a mad father.
Yeah.
So Snoke actually doesn't really have a high opinion of him, but Hux himself has a very high opinion of himself. I would describe it almost as, in a way, delusions of grandeur. He tries on the moniker of Supreme Leader Hux in his own mind. And what I found super fascinating was seeing people's perspectives of Hux around him. I didn't write down who said it, but there is a full-on Hux better watch out, because there's a First Order person that's I'm going to take Hux out at one point.
Was that the PV character or something.
It was in a scene with PV. It was Y something.
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about. Does he die though? I feel like everyone that wanted
but I mean, it shows something about the Empire in that it's very dog eat dog. It is very, the way you get ahead is by killing people. Very Game of Thrones, like, you know, like, who are we gonna murder to get a promotion? Who do I have to murder to get a promotion around here?
Yeah, totally. There's this really funny thing too that what are they called? Sub-adults. The sub-adult theme, not theme, but the thing that they have in the First Order is that they have like young, I would guess like preteen year olds or teenagers. This is in the Last Jedi visual dictionary. And they talk about how the sub-adults is what they call them. They're kept, basically they're like the ones I guess that weren't strong enough or able enough to be stormtroopers. So they kept them around in like more administrative positions because they tended to be really competitive. And that was like a good thing for like the types of jobs that they were doing, apparently.
That's interesting. I do not remember that part, but it seems like all of the First Order officers either seemed young or like not
old.
As beefy. So yeah, no, I could totally see that.
It's definitely like the competitiveness of it. Like you think maybe the older guys have been there for a very long time because they have either killed off their competitors or they've just outcompeted them in some way or another. And that's why they kind of showed disdain for someone like Hux holding the position that he's holding. So
yeah, that was really great. Yeah, Hux's character, it seems like he's going to be maybe the crazy bad guy of 9. Like maybe.
Yeah.
There's a few hints that I think that there's going to be some sort of stormtrooper rebellion that's led by Finn.
Oh, yeah. Totally. There's a big hint. There's like a whole page and a half of it.
Yeah, and that's from Rose's perspective.
There is also, yes, okay, there's the Rose's perspective, but then there's one, I'm not sure if you got to this yet. But the part, Hux is talking at the very end, like towards like when they're on Crate, and he talks about how the stormtroopers were actually the Jedi's like downfall. They were the problem with the Jedi. Let me find it because
yeah.
Okay, here it is. And this is in the same part that something else happens that's really important. But yeah, from Hux's perspective, he's talking about how the Jedi were like, how the Jedi like created the stormtroopers, and how they like the First Order adopted a lot of the same ways that the Jedi had like trained the clone troopers to incorporate into their First Order. And then he says the sentence. So in a sense, the First Order's stormtroopers were the Jedi's legacy. And that kind of is like, okay, if we're going to state it like that, then like you said, there has to be some kind of correction of that because again, like the Jedi problems and all that kind of stuff, we have to correct that. We have to fix that. And that's why we have Finn. At least I hope so.
Yeah. And Rose points it out and says, Finn broke the mind control. I wonder if there's others like him. That was just really poignant. Exactly. I felt it called out, yeah, Finn was the first one, but maybe there's others. And there was a deleted scene, because I had heard about this deleted scene, where somebody recognizes Finn when he's in his officer's uniform. It's a stormtrooper. I'd heard about this, so this is probably going to be on the deleted scenes in the release that'll come out next week. But I had heard about this, and I don't remember who's actually the person that's playing this stormtrooper. It is somebody, but it got cut, I think, for time. But this person recognizes him and is like, yeah, I heard you were infiltrating the resistance and good on you for the promotion, FN 2187.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because I thought that was just bizarre.
That was supposed to be a cameo by somebody. I don't remember who it was, but I'm sure that's actually a deleted scene.
Star Wars is so cool. Okay.
What's the next character you want to talk about? Cool characters that, I mean, we'll talk about pairings and go into kind of backgrounds of people. Like, I felt like Leia's scenes were very well done. You got a lot of in-depth understanding into how she felt about things, how she felt about Han, especially how she felt about Ben. I think we should probably talk a little bit about their pairing, Ben Solo. who I'm going to call Ben Solo in this moment, Ben Solo and Leia, because although they never meet face to face on screen, they have a very interesting interaction.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, the part where he could have stopped the torpedo.
And we see into his head in one of the, I think you counted 4 times we see into his head in the book.
Yeah. And don't quote me on it because I didn't actually count, but that's all I remember. I just remember those 4, and that was the first one.
That was the first one. So he is approaching the bridge, very cold. She specifically sits down because she senses him coming. She sees him in the Force because she is a Force user, but she uses it in subtle ways, which is totally the way a politician would use the Force.
Yeah.
She is Force sensitive. She uses the Force. And she senses him. And like any justifiable mom with unconditional love, she's worried about him.
Yeah.
And he senses that.
That's big.
And he pulls his hand away from the trigger. And he regrets not being able to stop his comrades in arms from killing his mom.
Yeah.
You tell me Ben Solo is not getting redeemed? I hate to tell you this, but that is one of the mini redemption moments.
It absolutely is. And it even says, he could have frozen it in space with just a thought. He knows that it wouldn't have taken very much, and he feels so hopeless in that moment. And I think it even says, too, that he couldn't feel her anymore. We essentially sort of died to him. And he never really, I don't think he ever feels her. I know he probably knows that she's still alive later on, but we don't get into his head again about that. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, no, they don't come back to her, which is kind of a shame because we know we're never going to see Carrie and Adam Driver on the screen together.
Yeah.
Who knows what they're going to do for 9? I don't know.
Yeah.
What I want to say is this is another theme of Star Wars in general that we didn't call out in the last one, and I apologize for that, but I think that this is the right time to bring it up. Love is the way. Love is not a problem. Mm-hmm. Love, unconditional love, as Anakin says, is encouraged. Mm-hmm. Unconditional love is the way of the Force. It's just, I mean, it's not smacking us in the face, but Leia is the personification in that moment of unconditional love, and it pulls Ben out of the dark.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. Those are the reasons why he went through with killing Han, instantly regretted it, but, he did it, and he was totally fine with going ahead and killing Luke, but there's something to say about the relationship between Leia and Ben as mother and son, and as both as Force users as they were. That's a very special kind of love, as you said. So yeah, of course he couldn't kill her.
Yeah.
She's the only one, aside from Rey, probably, but that he couldn't kill.
That's reached him. Yeah.
Yeah.
In a way, her sending Han.
Oh, yeah.
This is getting a little deep, but in a way, sending Han was a mistake, right?
I completely agree. Yeah, completely.
To Ben and trying to pull him back. Mm-hmm. And she regrets that. They cover that actually quite well in the book, how much she regrets sending Han to, and she wants to think of him as dead. She does, but she can't. And that's what he senses. And they cover that a little bit in there, kind of the aftermath of The Force Awakens, which is really, The Last Jedi is the aftermath of The Force Awakens and all of those events that have happened, and then carrying on and in many ways qualifying, okay, what was all this?
Yeah.
And how I kind of think about it is, I'm going to go a little personal. Mm-hmm. When my kids are sick, and Ben is very sick, when my kids are sick, they don't want dad. They want somebody to say, it's okay, sweetie. No matter what you're going through, it's okay. And they want to be cuddled, and they want to be loved. And Han, although he loves him, and we're going to see that, I think, in the last shot, especially that whole qualification, we're going to see a cute little button-nosed Ben Solo, and we're going to see a Han Solo that loved him to death. Quite literally to death. And Han, in that moment, I think when Kylo kills Han Solo, his dad, he senses I'm willing to do anything for you, son, even die. And it is a choice on Han Solo's part to let his son kill him. I think we're going to see that because it's the only way that it makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think narratively it makes sense that this was like the plan, like to have the legacy characters come back and obviously kill Han off first and then Luke off second and then Leia I believe was supposed to die in the third movie, but and then that would help, change and help Ben come to the light again. But theories aside, it makes total sense for Han to have gone through what he went through with Ben and for Leia to be kind of like the saving grace for Ben.
I actually think that she would have survived. I think that she would have been there standing with Rey to pull him back.
I mean, we don't want to get too much, I guess, into theorizing, but it's, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's kind of going into theories and speculation, but let's talk more about what's actually in the book. Any other characters that were super interesting to you? I mean, you want to talk about Rose briefly, or do you want to talk about Rose and Finn? Because they're kind of paired the whole thing. I mean, we can talk about the ship, but we could kind of talk about Rose and Finn as a pairing first, because they go on adventures.
Yeah, I think we can definitely talk about Rose.
Rose first, yeah.
I mean, yeah, they're pretty much interconnected, but yeah, we can talk about Rose first.
Rose in the beginning, especially with the relationship with Paige, was really expanded. Yeah. She has some really good conversations with DJ, and like the back end of her thoughts are really interesting. But yeah, most of her conversations are all in a reflection of Finn.
Yeah.
And or how she's feeling about what Finn is doing, or what Finn is saying, or what is happening around Finn.
Which is so funny because I think that is her. Like, especially from what we saw in the movie, she just lost somebody. So she's kind of like pouring all of her care and all of her concern that she had for her sister into Finn. And that's to me, that like relationship aside, shipping aside, I believe that. Especially because like she just went through a trauma. Like she lost the most important person in her life, and this is the moment where she wants to get back the First Order. She wants to help the Resistance fight the First Order more so now than ever. And then she meets Finn, and she's like, he is my hero. He can help us fight the First Order. We can avenge my sister. And he's not who she thought he was. So like kind of her being him somebody and be a hero, that is her character.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I'm totally okay with that because I don't think it's just about a lot of people online. I don't know if you've seen this yet, but a lot of people online think that Rose is jealous of Rey and that immediately upon meeting Finn, she is jealous of Rey. And it's like that trope, like two women they always are jealous of each other.
I don't think that Rey would be jealous of Finn because I think that she friend zoned him in TFA pretty hard.
Yeah, but the idea that Rose is jealous of Rey is just kind of like, I don't know. I don't like it.
And I didn't read it that way.
I didn't either.
I read it more like, it's kind of like Luke Skywalker's problem. His eyes are always on the horizon, never where he is. And it's like Rose is always trying to pull him back, like, no, we're in crisis mode now. You can't think about where you're going and that you're running away or that you want to go save Rey. We need to solve the problem today, here and now.
Exactly. And if anyone needs help right now, it's the Resistance. Rey is away from trouble. She's like the last person that needs help. You need to, like you said, you need to work on the here and now.
In many ways, it read actually quite the opposite of her being jealous. Like she would be accepting of, like there was one line, and I didn't write down the page number, but there was one line where she specifically says, and it was or sees that appreciation from him, and it was like, wow. That's not a jealous person thing.
Yeah, she does also say, I don't know if this is the same kind of line you're talking about, but she says, this Rey must be something special for him to just give up on this cause to go look for her. She must be really, really important. And that's like one of the first things that she says about Rey without knowing anything else about her. So again, like I think people are reading in a little bit too much to it. So, and I think Rose is, as funny as she is, so, like, she's very unexpected. She's unexpectedly thrown into the second movie, but I like her. Like, I think she's a fun character, and I love that she embodies that very caring female motherly presence that Finn really needs. Like, he never really had a mom. He never really had, that positive aspect in his life. So, again, relationship aside, if they were just to be friends, that's still fine too. She probably would be the same. But she just happened, as we can see, to fall in love with him throughout all of it.
Yeah. I wrote down, Rose is always mentioning how Finn is always mentioning Rey. And I wanted to say, like, it was like Rose was a unique take on what Finn had gone through in The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Like, it was like that journey of, like, discovery of what you were meant to do and how to be a difference maker.
Mm-hmm.
Like, told in just kind of a different way, which I thought was pretty cool. And we'll cover ships in a little bit, but who's next in your list of people you want to talk about?
I think that's all I have.
I kind of want to talk about
Am I missing someone?
Luke a little bit, and then talk about Rey and Luke. I just want to go into his lessons that he tries to teach her, because I think that mentor-mentee relationship is really interesting.
Oh, and can we talk? And also, we have to talk about that scene, the deleted scene.
Yeah, we'll go into that with the 3 lessons, because I think it defines their, like, whole arc as a mentor-mentee relationship and what they teach each other.
Yes, I agree.
So is there anybody else that you want to talk about before we get into those 2?
No, not that I can think of.
Connix. She got a little bit of play.
Yeah, that's
Connix.
Right. No, I liked her too. I felt the same way about Connix as I did about Tally. Although I'm glad that Connix is still alive.
I don't think they're going to kill her because you can't kill Carrie Fisher's daughter.
Oh, she is Carrie Fisher. What? She even has the buns and everything. It's so funny.
Yeah, that's Billy Lord in the movie. Let's talk briefly about BB-8, because we got to talk about BB-8.
Okay.
As a character.
Yeah.
All right. You have done the best summary, like we talked briefly before we recorded, and I want you to, like, give me your take on BB-8. I love droids, as I have done podcasts about droids. I'm planning on doing a big breakdown of BB-8 eventually. I want to wait until his full story is told to do it, but yeah, I'm really happy with the BB-8 play.
Oh yeah,
The Last Jedi.
He's so funny. It was totally unexpected, again, because I didn't read the Force Awakens novel. So when he started talking to Black One, and he was super sassy, and
he talked to the ship.
He talked
to the ship, and the ship's like, was I super fast? And BB-8's like, yeah, you were the fastest.
and he's like, was like the fastest any ship has ever run? And the BB-8's like, I'll just tell him that he was. Like, I just don't really care to go into that right now. Like, he just shrugged it off.
He's super sassy.
He is super sassy.
Yeah.
But the next couple of ones were so funny too, because he's super sassy and he's super funny, and the way he interacts with, like, the other droids is hilarious. But then in the next 2 chapters, where at the very beginning of each of the chapters, it says, no one notices a droid. And it instantly puts you into, like, this James Bond-esque, like, sneaky spy kind of thing going on. And then you're like, wow.
Dun, or Mission Impossible, like, dun, 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 dun. And it was in a casino. Yes. It was in a casino.
You know what's
he
really...
was James Bond in a casino.
And what's so funny about that is that I think Ryan actually... The request that he made to JJ to change in his movie was that he wanted not BB-8. He didn't want BB-8 to escort Rey to the island. He wanted BB-8 to stay with Finn so he could get them into that situation, which is hilarious because BB-8 is used a lot in the movie and in the novel, obviously.
There was 2 reasons for that. There was the R2-D2 reason, which is that he wanted R2-D2 to deliver that message to Luke, which I went into in a previous podcast was a key defining moment of both R2-D2's character and the relationship between R2-D2 and Luke Skywalker. And like, whew, gives me shivers still thinking about that. It's a solid character choice to actually have that happen from the writer's perspective. Good job, Rian Johnson. That is what R2-D2 does, is he tells the truth, and if people choose to listen to him, you make the right decision. Yeah. But as far as BB-8, he's this young kid droid that's
he's the main character in his story, whereas like R2-D2 always kind of takes a step back and is like the wise old man about things, but BB-8's like, oh, I'm the main character of this plot.
Yeah, and it was really well written. Like, if you took out those little pieces, they'd make like the cutest kids story.
Oh my gosh, yeah, the droids are perfect for that. They really do. And that's the thing, as I was saying about, I did not realize how, I knew droids were sentient in Star Wars, but to the extent that they're made so obviously sentient, like with the personalities and the thoughts that run through their minds, it's really cool. That was just a joy, I think, in this book.
Yeah, and it calls it out really well.
Yeah.
Like what I've been saying kind of all the way along, but really what has been said all the way along, and how droids are treated. They are treated like nobody notices them. They are the toasters of the Star Wars universe, the Roombas, The one alien, which I think they removed from, I didn't see that scene, the alien filling him with coins. He just shows up full of coins.
I think it's not like explicitly done. It's kind of done in like a sentence. It's done as a part of a sentence. It's
okay.
Like BB-8 had gotten his slot filled up with
like
whatever.
It was a really hilarious scene that was actually voiced by Mark Hamill in the movie, and then mixed together. And the Force of Sound documentary actually covers that scene like in depth, like all the layers of sound inside of it with this character and his CGI character. And it covered it really well, but he's confused for a slot machine.
Yeah.
Like in the movie, but they kind of pass over that. But then you get to see all of his adventures where he ends up kind of hooking up with DJ and saving the day in a way.
Exactly. I think that's just adorable, and I loved it.
Let's talk about one real life adorable moment, which was BB-8 was also a presenter on the Oscars stage.
Yes.
And Oscar Isaacs reaches down and scratches his belly.
Yep. I think I watched that clip like over and over and over again.
I'm so happy they made him a real thing. Like,
not just like a puppet.
Mostly BB-8 is puppeted.
Mm-hmm.
But they managed to actually turn him into a real... If you're ever interested, look into how they actually made BB-8 work. It is fascinating. And the story behind it, like they didn't actually think they would be able to actually have BB-8 work, but they managed to make it happen.
It's funny, me and my husband actually spent like a couple of hours in a random afternoon just watching YouTube videos from these BB-8 Builders Club people. And they all have different ways of doing it because it's just such a complex thing with so many moving parts, and they all have like several different iterations of BB-8s. It really is crazy, like the kind of innovation that Star Wars inspires.
The innovation that Star Wars inspires, yes. Okay, so let's talk about Luke and Rey, because this is the big pairing as far as a mentor-mentee relationship. And it's complicated because he is the reluctant master. He says no so many times. He eventually says yes, kinda. Yes, but I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. And he also says yes and then no. And then he says yes in the end to like saving her when Yoda finally comes and comes back to him. And I don't know what he thinks of her other than we hear him say, "What, you're not royalty?"
Mm-hmm.
Which is such a weird comment. It's such a weird comment. And you know, we hear the line, because that was added in to the book, the line like who are you? You're not royalty.
Yeah.
And that always strikes me as weird whenever somebody describes Rey as royalty, which Adam Driver in an interview, and I think he was probably jet lagged, he described Rey as a princess.
I think I remember seeing that. That is a weird one. But he's said weird things before about her.
Yeah, no, he certainly has said weird things about her before, but he's described his character, and then he was describing Rey's character, and he's like, and she's this princess, but she doesn't know she's a princess. Like, it's just like I always it always strikes me as super weird. And then when the scene that is added to the book, that was a deleted scene, and we know it was a deleted scene because they've described it as one of the deleted scenes on the release, when the caretakers ask who she is, mm-hmm. Luke says, "Oh, she's my niece."
Mm-hmm.
Which
there's some stuff there.
I mean, okay, so who's his nephew? I mean, like, it's so odd. Like, what are you doing to me, Lucas?
And then there's the dancing scene.
Oh my god, the wedding dance scene.
I love how you call it the wedding dance scene.
It was a wedding dance.
It was a fish people mating ritual dance. It was basically, though.
She danced with her potentially future uncle at a fish people mating dance.
It really was. It really was. A lot of people, it's so funny, a lot of people have been like, okay, this is like oddly romantic. And I'm like, whoa. No, it's not romantic. I
got the Weird Family wedding vibe, totally.
Yeah.
Like, I have to dance with my husband's uncle vibe.
Yeah.
Wasn't that like the vibe that you got?
Absolutely, because it was like,
she was like, I don't know how to dance. He's like, it's okay, drunken uncle. Like,
well, and he was being super nice to her. Like, he was being like, you know, like, oh, like let's cut off the whole, you know, master Padawan thing for a minute, and let's just like have a good time. And it was so interesting because he comes from, like, he had a family on Tatooine. Like, mm-hmm. Luke had a family. Luke knows what being a part of family is. Like, he had Leia and he had Han and stuff. So, like, Rey didn't. So, yeah, it totally is, like, the two opposites in the family are, like, having to get to know each other a little bit more emotionally, because that's what you do when you join a family.
Like, she is joining the Skywalker family. It is so... like, okay, it is not denotative, it is connotative. I'm not saying that they actually got married, but there is a lot of like of these connotations and what they mean and why they happen. And it's interesting that they cut this one, this whole sequence, because it loses something actually when we go into the 3 lessons that he's trying to teach Rey and what actually they mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
it's really from his weird depressed lens that we must view these through, unfortunately, but really they are trying to tell us something. So in the movie and in the book, Luke says the Jedi don't own the light. Mm-hmm. And he does this through like kind of tricking Rey into understanding what the Force is a little bit. And he ends up actually teaching her quite a bit about the Force, even though it's through this weird, grumpy, belligerent master take. Like, he's kind of a jerk. Like, poor Rey. But I think that what she needed was in a way, to know that she could trust herself after all of this, and not rely on Luke. Like, it's going to be your story, Rey. It's your story to solve, come out with, etc., not his. And he, being the Jedi in question, doesn't own the light. That's what I think is actually trying to be said.
Yeah.
Through his weird, depressed view, is that you can't rely on me. You have to, everybody has to have it. And they pull out several times that when Kylo and Rey are walking with the stormtroopers on their way to go see Snoke, Rey actually calls out that everybody can feel Kylo's force. They just don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Right? So it's, they don't own the force. It's everybody that has to own the force. And also, you know, it's not just him that can save the universe. I think that's what he was trying to say in his weird, twisted way.
Yeah, I completely agree, because what Luke was doing before he ended up on the island was gathering artifacts of the Jedi, of the ancient Jedi, like prior to Anakin's time, and trying to understand it and trying to find the true path, like back to the original Jedi. And then he just becomes disillusioned with it, because when he tried to set up the Jedi Temple and he was, you know, trying to recreate it for what it truly was, he failed. And so like where he ends up with all of that is, like, he learned a lot of the right lessons. Like, he learned where the Jedi did fail, but at the same time, he doesn't know what to do with that information.
As much as Yoda says, pass on what you have learned, especially the failure, like, he never got the dotted line, like the aha, eureka moment of, oh, the epiphany of the grand universe's plans and what it all means and how everybody can take a piece of it home with them and understand more about what the universe represents. He never got there.
No.
Because he was always trying to figure out who he was, what he was doing.
Yeah.
And he never let himself just be.
Yeah, and I think that has a lot to do with also the fact that he was never really accepting of the fact that he truly was the son of Anakin. Like, we never really get to see him wrestle with that other than in Return of the Jedi, and that was, like, pretty minuscule. So I think that's another part that's going through his mind that we do get a little bit. Like, there's a part in the very beginning where Luke is thinking in his head about how he had disagreed with Yoda and Obi-Wan. Like, he disagreed with them that Anakin was lost to the light. And that's, like, kind of, again, echoing the redemption stuff. But because he failed Kylo and because all of that stuff happened with the Jedi Temple, it's like, again, like, he has all the knowledge there. It's all right in front of him. He just doesn't know what to do with it. So, like, going into exile was the only thing he could do in his head.
His second lesson is the legacy of the Jedi is failure. And this in the book and in the movie, they call it Darth Sidious, which I find super fascinating because they never really use his name in the original trilogy, and it really does call back to the prequels, which they do several times. He calls himself in the book a Padawan.
Oh, cool.
Of Yoda. Whoa, for a company that's supposed to be avoiding the prequels, that's pretty darn prequel.
Yeah, it's pretty clear they like have fully embraced the prequels now, it seems to me.
Yeah, they're not avoiding them. They're just acknowledging that there were some mistakes made and they want to try to just do better in the future. And some fans might be frustrated with the current storytelling. I think it's amazing and brilliant. The legacy of the Jedi's failure, i.e. their hubris and what they thought the universe needed. They got caught up in themselves. And, you know, again, it's the trying to make things happen when things just will happen.
Absolutely.
Idea. It's a very backwards way to actually say, just let go. Just breathe. Just breathe. That's the lesson of that. And then this ties into the scene that we were talking about earlier, and like what actually preluded that, which was the real help comes from action. And how he teaches her that is that these boats are coming in and they're coming to, and he says, oh, those are invaders. And the Jedi would tell you, don't do anything. Are you a Jedi? You're not going to do anything. And she's like, hell's no. And she like grabs her lightsaber and force runs across the island to go and kill the invaders. Like, cause Rey, when she lets herself go, becomes action entirely and becomes the will of the Force and force runs, which we have never seen in the original trilogy, in the other movies, except for The Phantom Menace, when Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn force run down a hallway right at the start.
Yeah, I totally get where they cut that scene though, because the tone of it is so off-putting. Weird. Yeah, it's just like,
it's like
serious.
Luke is being just a troll.
Yeah.
Like he is trolling Rey so bad.
Exactly.
And he just trolls her. And then like she's like, oh, where are the invaders? And he's like, whoa, you ran really fast. I didn't expect that. And oops. Oh, it's just, the like fishermen coming home to greet their caretaker wives and make little caretaker babies.
And then she's just like, well, you could have told me that. And then they smile and dance.
And then they smile and dance.
Just is strange. It's nice. Like, it's a nice lesson. I don't know how it could have been written better. Like, I like the idea of it.
But we end up missing it from the movie because they cut that whole concept. And, the point is, be the change you want to be in the universe.
Yeah.
Like, I almost want to do like a good version of these Jedi rules, which these are the things he was trying to express, but he only can express them through negativity, which I find to be really a fascinating. Whoa, Rian Johnson. Like, just fascinating,
Yeah, totally.
And I think that he is, we're going to go into this scene, but I just a little bit want to talk about Luke's perspective of coming across Rey and Kylo having their Force Skype conversation.
Yeah.
In the hut. And he is, I want to, what did you think of that scene as far as from his perspective?
From Luke's perspective?
Mm-hmm.
Like, when he's contemplating joining Rey and,
going... He's like, oh, wait! I've had it all wrong! I should totally go off with her and save the galaxy! The universe wants me to do this! Oh, wait! They're having some sort of... I mean, this podcast is family friendly, but they're getting busy through the Force.
They are very, very romantically touching hands in a way that's like a first kiss. Oh my god.
Yeah, it is.
It was very, obviously we'll talk about that a little bit more.
But talking about Luke's perspective, he 180s. He's instantly depressed again.
Yeah, he is. And it's I think it was just because he saw his main failure. And I think that scared him to death. And he also was worried about Rey, the fact that she could not avoid going to the
darkness.
Yeah.
She was never tempted by the darkness. I think she just was she's drawn to it because it is her other half.
Yes, but also that's also her moment of that whole the hunger and having something to fill, like you talked about last episode, which is she needed to fill that void of knowing where her parents were. And so the hunger drove her to that place.
Yeah.
But I think that there's also obviously the cosmic forces are also at work there, like you're saying, because she really is just drawn there as well, because that's the other half of this whole balance thing coming into play.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that Luke saw his ultimate failure and he saw what was going to become his second ultimate failure. And that scared the crap out of him, which
Yeah.
I guess you can't blame him because he hasn't had very much human interaction in so long. So
yeah, I mean that's fair. And then she ends up like fighting him and like leaving to go and hang out with her cute wavy-haired boyfriend. I mean, like
pretty much
like teenage moments. Like she storms off. She has her best friend drive her car so she can drop off at his house and sneak in the back door to hang out with him.
Oh my god. Yeah. That was yep, pretty much. It's so funny, and I just want to make this a note real quick. I did not again, I was not on board with any of this after TFA, after The Force Awakens, so any kind of anything that anybody picked up on between Rey and Kylo totally went right over my head in The Force Awakens. So yeah, if it wasn't clear to me then, it is clear to me now. That must mean it's there. That's just how I feel about it.
I mean, he bridal carries her out of Tokadana.
Oh, when I go back and I watch it now, I'm like, oh my goodness, like how did I not see this? It's right there. But
I'm not going to go into it here, but I actually cover it. I'm going to be covering it in a future episode talking about fan fiction and ships, and kind of talking about this ship in particular and how like what I thought when I first saw it. And I too was confused.
Yeah.
Like cuz I had some pre-existing notions about who Rey was based on how she was introduced, who she was, and kind of like what I thought she meant in the story, and all that got kind of turned on its head, especially with confirmations from The Last Jedi. And now I completely view her in a different way, which is kind of wonderful. You know, new information changing your opinion, which is really neat.
Absolutely.
Moving into ships, I do have a quick disclaimer because I feel like it's pretty important to talk about ships, and there's a certain amount of people within the fandom that don't view them in a particularly nice light. But this is kind of a disclaimer. I'm borrowing with permission and love from Emily of Arden on Twitter, who does super ships for the Whelmed podcast, which is about Young Justice. And they have a lot of couples in Young Justice. It's about the Young Justice League of America, that like DC comic universe, and it's a beautiful cartoon, and this podcast is great, and she does understanding ships really well. But I want to steal her like a tweak on her own explanation of shipping and the disclaimer, because I think it's really great. So anytime that I talk about ships, I'm going to try to say this in the future. All forms of ships are subjective. The relationships we love, you may hate. The thing is, we see these emotional moments leading to something that may not be appreciated by some. It's all a matter of opinion. Love exists in the Star Wars universe, so we just want to dive in and talk about what we saw and pull out the subtle details that you may have missed, you know, if you weren't focused on that particular aspect of what we were interested in. And, you know, you might have been paying attention to the lightsabers and the exploding ships, but these relationships are what we're going to focus on. And now we will talk about ships. First, we're going to talk about Finn and Rose.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So I love, like, the only thing that was the same, obviously, the only time we got, like, the romance from Finn and Rose in the movie was obviously that last kiss. But in the novel, it's all throughout.
All the way along. They build it so well.
They do build it well, because there's a point at which she stops worrying about Finn. She starts to see him, like, come around. She stops worrying about his obsession with Rey. And then she says, she keeps bringing up her sister, and she calls her Pei, which is kind of
so cute,
annoyingly adorable. But she says at some point, like, that, you know, she said, Pei, you would have said he has a good heart, and you would have been right.
I'm gonna read the line. You would have loved him, Pei. You would have said he has a good heart. Rose smiles at the thought, and you would have been right.
Oh, it's so cute. It's so adorable.
So cute.
And it's
so adorable.
Because she didn't know if he had a good heart. She was still learning about him at that point. And then as she got to know him, she was like opened up a little bit more to him romantically.
And she views him very innocently. Like, there's several points where he's like, oh my god, this kid does not know anything about the universe. This stormtrooper doesn't know anything. Yeah. And it's a little bit of that, like, Florence Nightingale, like, I'll take care of you, kid. Or, like, you know, I'll show you the world.
Yes.
Like a little Aladdin. Like, I can show you the world. Shining, shimmering, splendid.
Canto Bite.
But also, like, you know, I see what you can be, which is always what you want in a good relationship, is a person that can see what you can be, not just what you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I think that's, again, like I said in the last episode, it was, she absolutely has a character, and she pours her grief and her motherly character into Finn and helps him find his own path, and that's really sweet. And then, of course, at the very end, the line when after she kisses him, which all of that it's so for children, and that's fine. I'm totally on board with it. It's really cute. But right after she kisses him, in the book it says, just in case he hadn't heard her or had missed her meaning, like that's why she kissed him. And then it says, the big goof had a good heart, but he also had a way of missing the obvious. I just thought that was like really...
That's like the icing on the cake for this whole thing. They have such a good arc. Like, they really do together.
Yeah.
It does justice to their story. And I don't know why it didn't come off better in the movie or more natural. Maybe it was just the cut or how much time they had to tell their particular story. But it makes me feel like the Canto Bite stuff is totally required.
Yes.
It justifies it to me. It makes their journey and like how much he cares about Rose. Like, he cares about the Hazian smelt. He cares about, you know, her well-being. He cares about the things she cares about, like the 5 years.
Yeah.
Like he... Oh, Finn is such a sweet boy. Such a sweet boy.
Yeah, but he's also, it's so funny, he's so easily affected by other people's emotion, which is why he was so easily affected by Rey in the first movie. So he's so easily affected by Rose, and then at the very she's like, I'm rubbing off on you, like, you're getting it, but you don't get the fact that I care about you in other ways, you know, and that's really cute too, but yeah,
it was very, like, both of these ships are very teenager. Like, Rose and Finn is very, like, 12-year-old romance. Like, in a way, like, I don't even know what I'm doing with my body.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm gonna hold your hand and blush. Like, it's very anime, otaku type, like, romance. Very, like, innocent in its way. Just like Finn.
I totally agree. Like, yes, like, I need a senpai kind of thing. I totally see that with them. And I'm okay with it.
Notice me, senpai!
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, it is like that. And they do justice to that kind of ship in the book. And and Rose, although liking a guy and wanting to see better of him and kind of hero worshipping him in the beginning, it seems natural. It doesn't seem like the obvious choice for the character in the book. Whereas I feel like in the movie, it came off very sudden at the end.
Yeah.
So that was a point where the book, like, really helped both Rose and Finn and that, like, relationship.
Yeah, because in the movie, the part that hit it home for me was not the kiss, obviously. It was the part where Finn puts a blanket over Rose while they're in the Falcon, and Rey's, like, sitting really close by, so he's obviously, like, he's focused on Rose now, which is sweet. But that's not in the book. Like, him, like, there's no mention, at least I don't remember, him putting a blanket on Rose. The biggest thing that happens is the kiss. So I think that's a good interpretation of the story. And it is done a little bit better. For their relationship, it's done better than it was in the movie. So
yeah. No, and it adds to both of them and does both of their characters more justice. And that's where I feel like the book really excels at giving Leia a better read, giving Poe a better read, giving Finn and Rose better understanding of their characters.
Yeah.
Because this movie focused around 3 people, and we're about to talk about 2 of them.
Yes.
And those 3 people were Luke, Rey, and Kylo Ren. And I'm gonna disappoint some people who may or may not be listening to this, but this was a romance movie, and it doesn't look like it.
Oh my goodness.
No, and the book makes it weirdly clear, but yet also doesn't actually spoil anything for potentially what happens in 9.
Mm-hmm.
It is weird. I mean, like, I can't even.
Oh gosh, I know. There's so many things that were in there that were added, and then there was a lot of things that were like kept out. Like
it felt almost deliberate. Like,
you
would think Rey would have a reaction from her perspective looking at Kylo in specific ways, and unless it was specifically called out with a line of text almost that was directly from the movie and how she was viewing things. So let's talk about Force Skype, because that's primarily their relationship until they actually see each other. So first, let's just talk. Ty, do you ship these guys? Rey and Kylo Ren or Ben Solo? He is called both in the movie several times.
Yes. Well, I mean,
which shows a transition.
Oh, totally. I mean, it is confusing when you are first jolted into the possibility of Reylo. Not even the actual canon acceptance of it, but the possibility of it. Like, it's a jolting experience.
He's a monster. He is a murderous psychopath. He is just a nasty piece of work who wears a mask.
And yet, in the second movie, he destroys his mask. He doesn't kill anybody except for Snoke's guards and Snoke. And he, like...
It's like progress, right?
Yeah, I believe that's the point. And that goes back to the whole, it's the reverse Anakin and Padme's story, as well as the rebirth of their stories, or the rebirth of them. Do you want to take it force spawn scene by force spawn scene?
Sure.
Okay. So, like, when they first, like, connect, there's a line from Kylo that says, it's actually from Rey's perspective, but she says that he sounded like a student contemplating an interesting problem, like when he says, you're not doing this. You're not doing this, yeah. Why is the Force connecting us, you and I? And she says, and expecting her to work as his partner to solve it.
Yeah, like what?
The word partner was, like, there. And then she said something like how it was infuriating, So she automatically sees that he's totally different from what she saw in the previous film. And it shocks her. So that's, like, it's, like, slowly breaking down her walls, which is exactly what we saw in the film.
He's hungry.
Yeah, he's hungry.
He's hungry.
Oh, he's gotta fill that void.
The thing about hunger is it's often described to have sexual meaning.
Yeah.
Like, it is often, and although it is in Rey's perspective, he is hungry for Luke, i.e. he hungers for destruction. Mm-hmm. He also uses, that word is also described with the look in his eyes towards Rey herself.
Mm-hmm.
So what? All right, next Force Connect. Force Skype.
There's a great little snippet that happens in between the first and second scene, actually, where Rey is, like, thinking that she thinks that she did this, like, she unlocked it whenever she broke into his mind on Takodana during the interrogation. And it is pointed out again that they both, like, during that scene felt each other's hurt and loneliness. And in that same thought process, she remembers seeing Vader in his head as the ghost that haunted his dreams. So that goes back to your whole...
The ghost that haunted his dreams. I didn't even catch that, Ty. You're the brilliant one now.
Not quite, because I didn't know what that meant then.
No, but no. That's mind-blowing.
Isn't
that
it?
She viewed it. And so, like, I think we should take a slight aside, because you asked me this question before we recorded earlier on today. Did Snoke cause this? Because he says he does in his own mind.
Yeah.
So what I think happened was they connected in Tokadana, and that's where she learned his Force abilities and the ability to actually fight against him. When she lets go in the Force, it was like he opened her up to the cosmic Force and what that all meant. It didn't necessarily mean... Like, yeah, she learned some of his Force abilities, and they do cover that in the book itself. She recognizes that she learned some things from him. She learned his, like, almost like the future, and he learns and opens himself up to the past. And that's a strong theme as well.
Yeah.
But I don't think Snoke caused it. I think he just... What Snoke did, because Snoke says he did it verbally to her, and it pisses Kylo off. It was like, no, what we have was special. Like, he's angry. Like, it's hilarious. But what I think actually happened was they connected, and what Snoke did was just, like, pumped it full of juice to actually amp the signal.
I absolutely agree, because if we've seen anything, it's that when something happens with, like, the Force inside somebody, it breaks open. Like, it's like a dam. And that's what Snoke probably did. He probably tinkered with something that broke it open, which means that it can't
And this is not the first time we have seen this ability. Rebels did it in season 3 with Ezra Bridger and Maul. Formerly Darth Maul. They have a Force experience where they have a shared vision of a question. So Maul asks, how can I end this all? And Ezra says, how do we defeat the Sith? And the answer is, in Rebels, spoiler alert, the twin sons of Tatooine. Because Maul wants to face, or who is the enemy I seek is actually what Maul asks. Or where is the enemy I seek? And it's Obi-Wan. He wants to face Obi-Wan and kill him, but really he wants an end to his pain. And Ezra wants to defeat the Sith, and the solution is on Tatooine. It's Luke. And throughout that, from that point on, they quite literally see each other every so often, exactly the way that Rey and Kylo see each other. Like, it surprises them, and they have these moments where they're, like, talking to each other, and then it's like, oh, you're there, oh my god. Like, it is, and that was done an entire year before The Last Jedi. So I've mentioned this in my Rebels previews, but I view Rebels as the Cliff's Notes of Star Wars. They prepare the Star Wars audience, especially the children in the audience, for Force concepts and for ideas that seem outlandish, but, like, are really truths. And because Filoni was in brainstorming for both The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi as far as the plot and all of that, there is no way that this is not all one story. Yeah. That's my rant for the day. Thank you.
I am completely with you on this.
Next for Skype.
Oh,
unless there's something else that you wanted to say about that one. I went on a tangent.
No, you hit the nail on the head with that one. Rey, upon seeing Kylo, she automatically wonders if they could actually touch across a galaxy. The words that she uses are across a galaxy.
Across a galaxy.
It's just very romantic sounding.
Well, and actually, okay, so, oh my God, I'm going to pull out another Anadala. No, I am.
Yeah.
Okay, so Padme and Anakin's theme is called Across the Stars. What? Across a galaxy.
It's
guys.
And even like that aside, it's just, it has a very romantic sound to it. And other literature as well. It's just very romantic. And the fact that she thinks, she's wondering if they can touch. Like
you don't want to touch somebody that gives you the heebie-jeebies.
Exactly. And then this is the one where she calls him a monster.
Oh, yeah. And he has a sad puppy moment.
Oh.
He's like, oh, yeah, I'm totally a monster.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And she sees after she calls him a monster,
he's sad.
She sees his eyes are full of hurt and conflict. Yeah. And then when he replies that he is, she says, and there was no menace in his voice, only misery. My heart.
I mean, and Adam Driver, like, played that well. Like, he did. But, like, to actually hear it, see it written as the written word, like, this boy is hurt.
Yeah.
And he's probably been tortured his whole life.
Yeah, you don't use words like misery without having some kind of trauma to back it up. I mean, we know how Snoke made him. We know Snoke is like an abuser in his life, so
we've heard it before, and we still to be determined how long Snoke has been in there. But even if he's been having nightmares his whole life, the ghost that haunts his past
that's a huge.
I mean, it feels like Kylo / Ben is possessed by Anakin.
Yeah, and I wonder about that to the extent of like, because kind of a little bit of a rabbit hole here, but like the idea of, they introduced like a little bit of a time travel thing with that Rebels episode. But it was not so much, it wasn't like time travel as we know it in sci-fi. It's time in the Force, like time and space in the Force. And I wonder if like Kylo is getting he's getting like a part of Anakin that was Anakin before he was redeemed. I mean, if Anakin, like Force Ghost Anakin, were to talk to Ben.
Right. I'm going to tinfoil hat you. He is getting...
Please do.
He is getting the Anakin without Padme.
In the afterlife? Like in the...
No. So either Ben is actually hearing... So let's there's kind of two different paths. So first, Ben is Anakin.
Right.
He is Anakin without Padme. Who is Anakin without Padme but Darth Vader?
Okay. But how can that, so Darth Vader is legitimately separate from Anakin?
No. And this goes back to, this goes back to The Force Awakens, Art of the Force Awakens. There is a beautiful image of Hayden Christensen as a Force ghost that floats between being Darth Vader and Anakin Skywalker.
Oh, why haven't I ever seen that?
Because you're not a giant nerd as long as I have been.
I still got some learning to do.
All right,
that explains it.
Okay, we're gonna pause just for 1 sec. So here's some concept art of what Anakin's ghost would look like.
Holy moly. Okay, that's really scary, first of all.
We haven't seen Anakin's Force ghost. And we haven't seen what this is, right? And so here's two things. Anakin's Force ghost can't fully realize to Ben because he never met him. That could be one. Or Ben is Anakin. His soul is Anakin's. He is this chosen one. He is this instrument. Padme was made an instrument of the Force and reborn. Ben was reborn within the Force from Anakin's soul, and he is having nightmares of his past without Padme because the only thing that can bring him whole is Padme. What did you think?
Oh yeah, I'm on board with it because I do agree with the fact that that's the only satisfying conclusion to this entire saga is if like, if Padme's sacrifice, like, everything she went through, like, it has to make sense. Like, it has to be corrected. Anakin's descent into darkness to save her has to be corrected. Like, we have to have some kind of correction of the mistakes that were made in the past. And, like, but it makes it so much more sad for poor Ben. Like, even worse.
Like, if you've literally been tortured by bad dreams and who is the guy who was in charge of Waco? David Koresh.
Oh, yeah.
So Snoke is like the David Koresh. He has, and this is very much a story of our times, even though it is telling it. Star Wars is very good at telling problems of today, as well as the mythos and the lessons that you need to learn from the past. And this is why I love it so much. The First Order is a terrorist organization. They have seed grown or stolen or recruited the child. Okay. The First Order is Al-Qaeda. And they have taken John F. Kennedy's son, corrupted him from a young age via the internet, and converted him to one of their leaders.
With a lot of other mystical stuff happening in there, too.
But don't you want John F. Kennedy's son to come back from that and be accepted home as a hero? Because in real life, during war, people kill each other, and then if they turn around, choose the right side, they are welcomed back and loved. And you want that story. You want the kid to be saved from the cult. You want the kid to be saved from the terrorist organization.
Oh yeah, totally. And again, it is so upsetting because of everything that he's been through, and then all these people that have tried to shape him and try to change him, and like there is an actual person in there, like, that's not this Kylo. He's not Kylo Ren, you know. He's not just like a pawn of Snoke's. He's not just this misunderstood kid by his parents, you know. He actually, like, from what we saw, there's some other stuff in like Force Awakens visual dictionary. They show him like he has like a calligraphy set, like. Oh, The Last Jedi?
Yeah, The Last Jedi visual dictionary. They show his calligraphy set, and they show kind of some of the stuff from his little hut that he had with the Jedi temple.
Like he is a person. He has humanity within him that makes him relatable. But and again, it just makes it so much more like traumatic.
Either they are setting up me especially to like cry my eyes out in episode 9, or they're setting up a redemption story of some sort, which, I mean, God love them for attempting to redeem a total monster.
I agree. And again, I don't see him as a total monster anymore. Like, after...
No, I don't see him as a monster either. I've always felt like he, much like, and John Williams wrote his theme itself, and it's this anxiety and hurt with these string instruments, with this bravado and brass attempting to cover it.
Yes.
But he is this hurt kid underneath, and this bravado and brass that tries to sound like Darth Vader on top.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's got like a dissonance to it that is just like, it's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking.
And I mean, the big theme that, like, in the movie, and we're going away from the book a little bit, but Rey's theme rises heroically through her hard work and through her efforts, takes Kylo's theme, fixes it, incorporates it into herself, and ends up as Across the Stars backwards.
Yeah, I saw that. That is fantastic. I love that so much.
So, again, tell me how this is not a romantic redemption story. Please do. Convince me otherwise. Okay, I want to get to the shirtless scene before we kind of get into the hand touching and then like
the fight.
The kind of two big scenes remain.
Yeah, no, that's the next one. I have two.
The biggest thing out of this was, hey, girl, my eyes are up here.
But it was like not explicitly there. It was just not. Like, I was really upset with this.
She says She has to force herself to look in his eyes.
That doesn't mean that she was looking... I don't know.
She was looking at his bod.
She was also looking at his scar, which is also kind of... I don't know. I mean, I agree it's there to the extent it's very, very surface level, though. It's like what was in the movie, but it's very surface level. The only thing in this scene that stood out to me was when he said, you're looking for parental figures in everyone, and then she read his gaze after he said that as hungry and knowing. Again. And hungry and knowing. I liked that a lot. I thought that was interesting.
Kylo is so hungry.
He's so hungry. It's hilarious.
He is described as hungry. He wants himself some Rey. Okay, and then we move on to the hut scene, which is just post Rey's vision in the cave, which is very reminiscent of many Force users' visions in caves, except that she has no answers because she has no parents.
Oh, yeah.
Because she has no parents.
Oh,
okay.
And I loved the way, because like in the movie, she was like talking through the whole scene, and then all of a sudden we see that she was talking to Kylo, and it's like, whoa, it was a great reveal.
No, she introduces it, like, we get the kind of beginning of that scene in the book where she's like, oh, he's here.
Yeah.
He's here.
Yes.
And she feels relief and she's excited to speak with him. And she's like, he's the only one I can talk to.
And and it is so great because right before that he actually writes where she like collapses in front of the mirror and weeps.
Right, yeah.
And that's something we can infer that in the movie, but he actually puts it in there, and then it's like, and after she finally like kind of gathered herself.
Yeah, and I didn't get that impression that she was that upset. She just was like, oh, this is how it is. I don't have parents. Yeah. Like I didn't get that like she was that upset, but it really calls it out that she was reaching out literally through the galaxy to connect.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can see in the movie, you do see some tears rolling down her face, but you can't tell if it's like water because she was like drenched. Yeah. So it kind of gets lost, but I loved the fact that she weeps in the book and then she has to gather herself, and then she wants to, and what's really cool is when she does say she wants to go and like talk to someone who would understand how solitude and loss could eat away at you until nothing was left. She could have been talking about Luke. Yeah. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, yeah. I love this. At the sight of him, she'd felt relief surge through her. He listened intently, his long face impassive, as she told him about being drawn into the cave, into the stone, and how the journey led to nothing, no revelation, except that how alone she was. You're not alone, he insisted. And she believed him. Neither are you. It isn't too late, as she tries to save him. And she tentatively raises her hand towards him, expecting to see their hands go through each other, wondering if she would feel it in the Force somehow. But their fingers actually touched. She grasped his hand, jolted by the contact, and saw the same shock had gone through him. Okay, how is this not a kiss? How is this not a kiss?
Didn't someone say, like, a kiss is the closest thing you'll ever get to, like, a sex scene in Star Wars?
This is closer.
Well, that's it, right? Well, oh my gosh.
And then like immediately after that, Luke interrupts them and blows up the hut, and Kylo disappears, and then Rey has a fight. But this is the two teenagers experimenting with each other in her bedroom. You know, like when I was a teenage girl, I was not allowed to have guys in my bedroom.
Yeah.
Because this is the exact scene my parents like would be afraid to come across. Me experimenting with the Force, attempting to touch somebody from across the universe. From across the stars, even.
Stars. Oh, totally. I loved it.
I mean, it was hot.
I do think like the dialogue was too like like right on top of each other. Like I was hoping a little bit more, because to me, when I watched that movie, it was stretched out. That scene went on for so long the first time I saw it. Like
there's like mood lighting. They didn't describe the mood lighting.
Yeah.
Like in the movie, there's like the fire and like he seemed nervous and she seemed nervous. And like there was all this like nervousness which comes with the first kiss or first whatever. First whatever is what we're gonna use. That was their first whatever.
He also doesn't take off his glove in the book. Like that's not.
Oh yeah, no, and that's super important in the movie because they like touch skin to skin.
Yeah. And he's like he wants to touch her. Like he wants to touch her with his hand, like with his skin. Like, it's just so romantic, and I wish that would have been in there. I really wish it would have been.
I would actually argue that it's not actually romantic. It's lusty. Like they lust.
That's a good point.
In that moment. It is teenage lust. It is not romance. It doesn't have deeper. It is experimentation with feelings and experimentation with like what their bodies want them to do, not and what, you know, their yearning and their hunger because they're so hungry.
And I love it. I think it's great.
Teenage. I mean, these are the 16-year-olds of Star Wars right here.
Totally.
Like Finn and Rose were like the 12, 13-year-olds. These are the 16-year-olds. And from this, she's like, I must go to him.
Oh yes, so I can get more of that skin-on-skin contact.
I can touch him in person. Which I am. I'll get to the point where I'm super disappointed in the book.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So she and Chewie take off with the porg-infested Falcon.
Yeah.
And Chewie's like, "What are you doing?" In his like his Chewie growl. And she's like, "I gotta go save him." And he's like, "Okay." Like Uncle Chewie is like, "Yeah, okay." Because he's totally like adopted uncle to Ben. And she gets into, and I did not think that they would do this, and it struck me because I knew something about behind the scenes, but she gets into the escape pod, and she's like, "Wow, this feels like a coffin."
Yes.
And Ryan specifically made sure, like they had to go through several iterations of the escape pod to make it more coffin-like.
He kept going, I have this image, I don't know why, but this image of a coffin in my head. Like,
do more coffin! What?
We know why, right?
No. Spell it out for us, Ty. Why? Why a coffin? What symbolism is a coffin heading? I mean,
well, There's two.
Okay.
There's the direct kind of aesthetic that we got from Padme being carried in a coffin.
In a coffin, very similarly. And wow, how much they look like each other.
Yes.
Okay, go on. Yes.
And then the other one is their Persephone. Is that how? Yeah, that's how you say her name.
Persephone, yeah.
Going to descend into the underworld.
It is, and descending in the underworld to be with her husband.
Hades. I think it's pretty explicit.
I'm fanning myself. The vapors, please. No, seriously, like, what are they doing to us?
Yeah, they're giving us all this, like, they're slapping on the symbolism, and they're slapping on...
It's
like,
all this connotation. Connotation. No direct denotation yet.
Right.
Small denotations, like, you know, how intimate these things are, and how she looks away from his eye, like it looks to his eyes, and, you know, how they feel about communicating little things, like they really want to touch each other and stuff, but connotation, it is layered so thick that I feel like I am drowning in this ship. Like I honestly, like I was not expecting this much in this book. I was not. Yeah. I was, and you said you thought there would be more, and there wasn't. So they're even being like, they're restraining themselves from making it too obvious, obviously.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, my expectations were low for me. And yet it's like, it depends. It depends on the part in the book that we're talking about, I guess. But, so my next, like, my favorite line, like, in the entire book is next. And, like...
Okay, go ahead.
It's literally, like, the thing that I love so much about Ben in, like, one sentence. But it is, like, a hell of a sentence. So whenever her escape pod shoots and goes towards his ship, Snoke's ship, it says from his perspective, Kylo Ren knew who was in the escape pod even before it opened with a hiss of vapor. Her presence had been a steady pulse from the Force the moment his father's junk heap freighter once again somehow heaved itself out of hyperspace without disintegrating.
It's a really good description of, like, the Falcon on life support. But the fascinating thing is that Rey has been fixing the Falcon.
Yeah.
Right? She has already started to fix it. She already has made it better. Because that's what Rey does, is she waits and she fixes broken things.
Heck yeah, she does.
Yeah.
I love it. That was everything I love about Ben in one sentence. It was like, you know, the thought about Rey, he could feel her, but he's also, like, kind of fixated on his father's ship and how much he hates that piece of junk.
He hates that.
And how is
that
it
hunk
even
of junk.
still... Yeah, how is it even still flying?
But the thing is, like, Rey also thinks it's garbage, but it means so much more to her now because of, like, what it represents. And it's, like, if we view this from a mythological space, when Kylo took her, and we're going to Persephone and Hades, because that's where we seem to be going. When Kylo took her from Tokadana, he married her. Against her will, which happened with Persephone too. But several times Persephone goes to the underworld and actually helps Hades out, and it kind of accepts that marriage, etc. This was her return to the underworld, which she does for a season every year to be in the underworld. She spends a fourth of her year in the underworld if she is Persephone in this situation.
Yeah.
And this whole thing is just Grecian in its nature.
Yeah. Totally.
Shivers. All right.
Yeah.
Anything else? Oh, he smiles at her. He smiles. He's super happy. We get no smiles from Adam Driver.
It's so funny though, because I felt like he had a sort of smirk on his face.
Yeah, maybe.
When she arrived.
maybe they were like, "Oh, you're smiling too much, dude." And he's like, "I'm so happy." And they have this, like, little interplay where he's like, "That belongs to me, Skywalker lightsaber holder."
Oh, I was not happy with that. I was like, no, like, get that extra dialogue out of there. I don't know why I felt that way towards it.
No, I actually thought it was super cute because he's like, and he's almost in a way kind of, it's not in the way that it was in the forest in TFA. That lightsaber belongs to me. This was teasing. It was playful. It was actually, that belongs to me. You know, and he's like, and she's like, hells no, this came to me. And he almost smiles because he knows that they are teasing each other. And, like, if we're taking the fact that they are already, like, mythologically married into consideration, hells yeah, it already belongs to her.
Yeah, totally. It just threw me.
It was her dowry to become a Skywalker.
That's a cool way of putting it. I buy into it. I mean, what's fixing to happen with, you know, with in the throne room and the fight and everything like that. That's enough to show you that what belongs to Rey belongs to him and vice versa. Like
the scene in the interrogation room was actually some sort of weird wedding.
I love it.
Okay, so throne room. Snoke is a jerk. Kylo is fuming. He's fuming. And interestingly enough, we don't get Rey or his perspective in this until the fight itself after Snoke is dead.
Yeah.
Snoke misinterprets everything. what Rey represents, although he does say that she is an instrument of the Force and super powerful and super strong with the dark side, or super strong with the Force.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like there's two different Kylos in this movie too. There's like the Kylo that was opened up by Rey, and then the post Rey leaving him Kylo.
Yeah.
Like there's a little bit of that. Like he's broken up with a little bit. But in the scene, I believe that it's described like when Snoke is torturing her and teasing her and treating her like garbage, Kylo is very conflicted. And then the moment, there's kind of two moments. It's like, it's progressive. Snoke says, "Haha, I did this Force connection." And he's like, Kylo is shocked.
Yeah. I think he's pained and confused. And I think Rey was shocked.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they were both shocked, which they were like,
yeah,
no,
they're both shocked, yeah.
This stuff belongs to us. And he's like, haha, I was listening in on your conversations the whole time. And they're like, ew. And then I think the moment is Snoke says, "And now you will die because you've given me everything from Skywalker. And I know where Skywalker is. And now you're going to die. And now you're going to die." And then at that moment, he senses Kylo become calm. Like he's resolved.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that he's resolved to kill Rey.
Oh, no.
He is resolved to kill Snoke somehow figure it out. And he is calm and he is collected. And Snoke says, "Oh, he's finally becoming who he's meant to be."
He knows what he has to do.
He knows what he has to do. And he describes like that, the confusion before that moment as the thing that he doesn't like. And he then becomes who he is meant to be with Rey by his side and with him. And then Kylo kills Snoke, kind of almost like with Snoke's eyes closed, because he like senses Kylo's determination and things like that. It was really well written, that whole scene.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
And then fight! After
yes.
Snoke dies, fight. And there isn't that much said from Rey's perspective as they lock eyes and decide to fight.
Yeah, there's not much.
I'm disappointed because I felt like there should be more like forced communication between the two of them in that moment.
Yeah, I agree. There's a part where she I guess bumps into his back, and it's kind of more described as like she falls into him, but it's not like how it looked like in the movie, which was like they were in unison, they were fighting together.
Yeah.
In the book, it was more an accident.
Yeah, it didn't feel as in sync and in unison, whereas the movie itself played that very well with the fight choreography, and that thigh grab was not in the book.
Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't. How disappointing.
I know. We just wanted her to touch his butt. Like,
yeah, that's all we wanted. That's not asking for much.
just like and to like describe how firm it is because he's so in shape. You know, was that too much, Jason Fry? I guess so. By the way, I love your book if you ever listen to this, Jason. I really do. I loved every part of it, except for the fact that you left out that thigh grab. Oh, goodness. I guess you weren't looking at that part. I mean, when you had to see the movie and stuff.
No, he missed it.
He missed that. He blinked. I mean, it was a blink thing. But every woman I know who's heterosexual saw that thigh grab and said #relationship goals.
Yeah, exactly. I certainly did. There was one part where they did feel, where Rey felt him, like there was parts where she felt like the Force and she felt like the cosmos is singing and stuff like that, but there was a part where he was in danger when he was in the headlock.
And she
feels a sudden
lightsaber.
Yeah, because she feels a sudden spike of fear in the Force. So that was it. That's like a little breadcrumb, but that's all we got out of that.
Yeah.
But then, okay, so when they're done fighting, this was like something I really could have done without. I was really not happy about this line, and it still rubs me the wrong way.
Was it because she was crying?
No.
Oh.
But that, I mean, like, there's a little bit in here, like during like the Darcy Rochester like proposal scene, you know, it's very like so she says to him as he's like walking towards the throne to look at Snoke, she says, Ben, and then he replies,
"That's not my name.
That's my old name." That's just weird. Like, it weirded me out. I can't picture him saying that, especially because when she called him Ben in the elevator. Yeah. Like, there's no way he could have said that out loud. I don't know. I don't think so. Not to Rey.
I think maybe he was out of it a little bit. I can kind of see it like, don't call me that. Like, and I know I have friends who have specifically chosen to change their name. And it's something that's a little weird to get used to. It took me personally 3 months of calling him by the wrong name to actually call him by the right name. And now I can't even think of what his old name was.
Yeah. No, it's like, yeah, that would be his, like, that's his, like, knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
But
it played off weird. I know. It
did play off weird.
In that moment.
That's my old name? I don't, ugh. And it was, and to me, it just kind of like cut off their
I feel like a better
connection.
way to say that would have been like, call me Kylo, please.
That's still.
There's a really interesting thing that Snoke slightly mentions before in that scene about Kylo Ren's name and like that it represents what he thinks he could be. And so I think that that's Lucas story group hinting at what Ren represents. So hopefully we'll find that out in future movies.
Yeah.
But like together, like they have this push, and so he's like, no, join me, like, which is the total Skywalker move. But I will point out that only Anakin Skywalker ever says it.
Oh, that's true. That is true.
It's only an Anakin Skywalker move. So, yeah. I mean, Ben,
it's maybe. Not like a Luke thing. Or
it's not a Luke thing. It's not a Leia thing. It's not a Shmi Skywalker thing. It's only an Anakin thing.
So he's just, like, connecting with that part inside of him again.
Yeah. Or he wants to be, you know, but there's no way that he would know that about Anakin Skywalker, that he always was like, no, rule the galaxy. And it is almost the exact same way, in a kinder way, in an attempt to be kinder, that Anakin asks Padme. It's almost the exact same way. And it's almost, the hand is almost the exact same way that Vader attempts to ask Luke.
That's true. That's a really good point.
It's like a weird combination of those two asking family members to rule the galaxy with them.
That's true.
Anakin, you only have one move. It is not the best move. I'm just gonna disappoint you.
Yeah.
Either Ben is just, like, really his grandfather's son, or he is Anakin.
Yeah.
Or grandfather's grandchild.
Yeah. Everything skips a generation, apparently.
Apparently. All that, and, it's all throughout TFA, too. There's too much Vader in him. It's all there.
Yes, there is.
It's crazy. And so she's like, no, Ben, don't do that. No, don't do this. And then they fight over the lightsaber, and the lightsaber cracks in half.
Yeah.
Like some sort of divorce.
Yeah, it even says, like, the crystal was trying to find harmony, but it could only find dissonance. And it was very, like, hitting it home with, like, the Force is, like, angry at them. It's mad that they can't, like, figure things out. It's mad at both of them.
Yeah, like, it's mad at both of them because and Rey only realizes her mistakes after that fight, because the Force is telling her one thing. The Force is also telling Rey, look, you have to let him suffer for a little while so he realizes his mistakes. And the Force is telling Ben, you can't have her until you get your problems under control. No, I mean, that's... Yeah. Because the Force wakes her up first. She runs away. And she's gone. And he can't be near her any longer. He had her in his circle for a little while, and he was in sync and in harmony, and everything was working, and then he screwed up. And we're going to get into this in the final scene of their connection. Yeah. But, like, to me, that's just, like, that's the lesson the Force is trying to tell you. Look, you have to suffer a little bit until you figure out that you can't win. There's no winning this way. And for her, she realizes it right away when she wakes up. He has to make his own mistakes, and she has to take herself away from him. Much like an abusive relationship where she still wants to be with him, but she has to be away from him until he can figure out his stuff. And that is echoed in the last Force Skype.
Yeah, absolutely.
But she also, did you want to, what did you want?
Oh, no. Continue.
Oh, when he wakes up, he's like, oh, she has compassion. She let me live. She could have totally killed me. That will be her downfall. Whoa!
It really does sound so maniacal.
But he's like, I think he's just bitter. Like, I think he's just he is. Like, to me, I read that like, oh, she's just the worst.
Yeah, I even put in like my notes, like, you know, after he said almost as if she cared for him. And then I said, and then he just proceeds to sound like an adolescent teen. Like, because that's pretty much all it is. Like, he's just like, fine, you're going to be like that. Well, that's going to be the problem that you have. He's just not. He doesn't get it.
He did not get it. And then, okay, fast forward.
Yeah, fast forward. Because we talked about...
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, because we did talk about a lot of this already. We talked about the fight, and we talked about Rey's... Yeah, we talked about Rey's perspective. So yeah, so we just have like that last little Force bond moment. But
which is like Rey has saved the day by letting them all out of the trapped cave, using the Force, letting in the Force, and doing it, and making things float, which is the joke. Kind of like, that's what the Force is, making things float and controlling people with your mind. And Ben is picking up the dice in the crate control center, which are like so much imagination disappear in his hand. He gets the sense of her there. He sees her, and she's on the ramp to the ship, just like it is in the movie. And it's from his perspective, which is the first time we see the Force Skype from his perspective. Yeah. What did you think of this?
It was very upsetting, but it was supposed to be upsetting. I mean, it's a sad moment because he says he didn't see, was it hate? He didn't see hate in her anymore, but he also didn't see compassion. Yeah. Which means he saw compassion before, and like that just like kills me that we didn't get more of his perspective. But you know what? There is also not any mention of, there's no really mention of like what he feels. And there's no mention of what the dice make him feel. Or anything about the dice at all.
Yeah, but I think that's because they're keeping it under wraps what he feels. He is is it the correct thing to say, the mystery box in a way?
Yeah. No, that's it is, because it's a good, like, that's a good mystery box if it contributes to, like, again, the character, the motivation of the character and everything like that. Like, we know what the dice are. We just like, we need to know what it means to Ben. And they're totally going to give us the answer because they
right
used
now.
it so much. Yeah, just not right now. Exactly.
Yeah, he sees her eyes. There was no compassion either. Yeah, so he did see compassion. And one thing that I found super interesting was that he says she severs that force connection. The force connection. So she severs the force connection, which I got the impression is how he viewed every interaction with her. As if you were to write these force Skypes from his perspective, when things happen, she's the one that's shutting it off. She's the one that's going away because he views things from a very negative perspective. From her perspective, things just like interrupt.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not like she's not like trying to shut it off, except for in the beginning, she's trying to shut it off. But later on, she's certainly not trying to shut off the force connection, and nor does she feel like she can. She doesn't really like, cause she tried and she wasn't able to. So I found that it was really interesting that he says that she shut it off, because I don't think that's actually like what happens, but I think that he views her as shutting off the force connection.
No, that's a good point, because I didn't think about it like that, thinking that he might have thought that way about previous connections. But that totally makes sense, because we didn't get it from his perspective in the previous connections. And we know that, like, she's not actually shutting it off because, again, they can't stop whatever broke open between them. They probably don't have the power to shut that off. I don't think that they do. I think that Snoke tinkering with it is kind of the proof of that. Like, it's something that's just open. And, like, the whole... Her like, accepting that he could come around and the Force is not done with him yet shows us that she is going to wait. So that's not her giving up on him. It's her, and this is funny, because this is... The junior novelization made it, which I don't think is, like... I don't think it trumps as the adult novelization as far as canon goes, but it does make the distinction between Kylo Ren and Ben Solo... Like, very much so. It paints them as, like, two completely different people, because it makes it easier, I guess, for children to understand. So I feel like Rey has given up on Kylo. Like, she was shutting off Kylo, but she's waiting for Ben. I mean, if that's kind of, like, the idealistic way we want to look at it, I think that's probably the best way to look at it. Because also, Luke also says that, again, that Kylo was just a shell around the boy that he tried so hard, you know, to save. So
yeah, no, and I get that sense too. Like, I get, and we've had this we briefly had this conversation about the Last Jedi as well, because you felt very much like the Rey character in this force fight, because it's like it's a force relationship fight in a way, right? And you're like, you said, I always run away. I always like go and shut the door and hide in your real relationships, right? Like, and people have disagreements. We are humans. We have disagreements. I am the Kylo Ren in my relationship. I fight until I am heard. And until somebody listens, I am that person. I will disagree, and I will just like, no, we got to hash this out. This has to happen now. This has to happen now. My husband walks away until I have calmed down. And I view that as abandonment. As much as I've tried to get over that my entire life, I view him walking away to allow me time to calm down and to me to come back to myself, to my Ben Solo.
Yeah.
As him abandoning me. Even though in my brain I know he's going to come back and he's going to, you know, come out of the room or whatever. I view that as abandonment. And that's where Kylo/Ben is. And I think that's where Rey is. She's saying, okay, you need to go and have some time to become Ben, or to see your priorities, or to be lonely, or to suffer a little bit, to understand, or to calm down, and to understand all of this in perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. After everything that she's gone through, she's not going to give up on him. Like, that's the opposite of what Star Wars is about. So
I mean, and it's repeated. I actually lost count how many times it's repeated that people were saving. We have everything that we need. No one is truly gone. Like, it is repeated in the script of The Last Jedi. It is repeated in the book, in the thoughts of characters, in the redemption is there. It's just this subtext to the whole story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my goodness. With that, I think we're finally done. The Last Jedi. Thank you, Ty, for coming on and talking about The Last Jedi novelization, taking copious amounts of wonderful notes, going on this crazy journey with me to talk through and putting on a tinfoil hat with me and saying, okay, I'm not crazy. You're not crazy. I'm not crazy. Right?
Yeah, it's an absolute blast to finally talk to somebody that has similar ideas about The Last Jedi. I love it, especially as a new fan. It's nice,
which I love. And you are honestly welcome back anytime you're like, Marie Claire, we need to talk about this. I think we should also do a version of the movie because we need to talk about Adam Driver without his shirt on. Hot.
Absolutely.
And his wavy hair.
Oh, his hair's so perfect.
Thank you again. And so where can the people find you?
They can find me on Twitter at black_TYM, as in mom. And then they can find me on YouTube making various Star Wars videos as Wit and Folly, WIT. Yep.
I am Marie Claire. This has been our epic discussion of The Last Jedi novelization by Jason Fry. And thank you for very much listening to this. And we're both exhausted because this has been a marathon of reading it and then trying to talk about it. But thank you again for paying attention to this whole thing. What the Forest podcast is available at whattheforest.ca, on iTunes and anywhere podcasts are found, as well as on Twitter at WT Forest Show. Thank you again and cheers.